Okay, so you've heard about mindfulness, right? It's absolutely everywhere. It promises to help us feel better, less stressed. But let's get real for a second. Beyond just a feeling, what is actually happening inside our bodies when we do it? Today, we're going to peel back the layers, get past the hype, and look at the hard science that's starting to map this incredible mind-body connection. So, this is the big question, the one we're really digging into today. Can a mental practice, something you do with your mind, create a real, measurable, physical change in your body? We're not just talking about psychology here. We're talking about biology. Can mindfulness actually get under your skin and leave a fingerprint on your very DNA?
To even begin to understand how that could be possible, we have to start with how our bodies deal with stress. Because it turns out that feeling of being totally overwhelmed, yeah, that's not just in your head. It actually kicks off a very real physical chain reaction.
And that chain reaction often leads to this thing called low-grade inflammation. Now, this isn't like when you sprain your ankle and it swells up. No, this is different. Think of it more like a constant, low-level hum from your immune system, just simmering away in the background. And scientists have connected this state to all sorts of things, from mood disorders to heart disease. This right here, this is the biological target we're zeroing in on.
So, let's look at exactly how this works. When your brain picks up on stress, it fires up a system called the HPA axis. You can just think of it as the body's main stress response command center. It starts pumping out hormones like cortisol, you've probably heard of it, the stress hormone, and that in turn flips the switch on these inflammatory pathways. And there you have it. That's the biological cascade that turns a mental feeling into a very real physical state.
All right, so we know stress can cause a physical response, but can something like mindfulness actually reverse it? Well, to answer that, we need to bring in our second major concept, epigenetics. This is this totally revolutionary idea that our environment, our choices, our behaviors, they can actually talk to our DNA.
The easiest way to think about it is like this. Your genetics, your DNA sequence, that's the hardware. It's the fixed blueprint for your body. You get what you get. Epigenetics, though, that's the software. It doesn't change the blueprint itself, but it tells the hardware which programs to run. It's what tells your genes to switch on or off. It's basically the instruction manual that our lifestyle choices help to write.
So how does this software even work? Well, epigenetics has this little molecular toolkit. For example, DNA methylation adds a tiny chemical tag that basically acts like a do not read sign on a gene, silencing it. Histone modification can tighten or loosen how the DNA is packaged, making genes either harder or easier for your body to access. But the main takeaway, the thing to really remember, is this. It's not about rewriting your genetic code. It's about controlling its volume with a set of dimmer switches.
Okay, so we have our two big ideas on the table. We've got the how, stress triggers inflammation, and we've got the what, epigenetics can control our genes. So now let's connect the dots. What does the actual hard scientific evidence say about mindfulness and its effect on our biology? And we're not just talking about some small one-off study here. Let's start with the scale of the research. One huge meta-analysis, which is like a study of other studies, pulled together the data from 10 different trials. In total, they looked at the biological data from almost 1,000 people, all to see if a clear pattern would emerge.
And guess what? A pattern did emerge. Now, what you're looking at here is called a forest plot. Each little square is a different study, but the important part is this diamond down at the bottom. That represents the combined result of all of them. And because that diamond is clearly to the left of the center line, it tells us that overall, mindfulness had a small but statistically significant effect on reducing those biological markers of inflammation.
So let's just put that in plain English. That feeling of being less stressed after you practice mindfulness, it's not just in your head. It's not a placebo. The science is suggesting that there's a real, measurable, physical shift happening inside your body's inflammatory system. And when you zoom in on individual studies, the evidence gets even more specific. I mean, look at this. In veterans with PTSD, mindfulness was linked to epigenetic changes on a key stress gene. Other studies found lower levels of specific inflammatory molecules. We're even seeing measurable changes in brainwave activity for adults with ADHD. It's like this fascinating trail of biological breadcrumbs.
And what's really amazing is where this research could be going next. Some studies are now looking at a possible link between mindfulness and our telomeres. Now, telomeres are these little protective caps on the ends of our DNA that naturally get shorter as we age. The very idea that meditation might be connected to keeping them longer and healthier, well, that just opens up a whole new conversation about mindfulness and cellular health. It's pretty mind-blowing.
So we've got all of this really compelling evidence piling up. But let's take a step back. What does it all really mean? It's super important that we put these findings in the right context and, understand the nuance here.
Yeah, this is absolutely crucial to understand. The scientists who did this big review were very, very careful with their words, and we should be too. They described the effect as low but significant. This isn't some magic cure. It's not a replacement for medicine. It's a subtle but real biological signal.
And you always have to read the fine print, right? The researchers themselves point out the limitations. A lot of the original studies had a risk of bias, some of them had pretty small sample sizes, and they were all looking at different kinds of mindfulness. Now, that doesn't just erase the findings, but it does mean we need more, bigger, higher quality studies to really nail this down for sure.
But here is the big, exciting takeaway from all of this. For literally centuries, the mind-body connection was something people talked about as a philosophy, maybe a spiritual idea. What's changed? What's so incredible is that we now have the molecular tools to actually investigate it. We can pop the hood and see the biological ripples that our mental states create. It's a whole new scientific frontier.
And that leaves us with one last, pretty fascinating question to think about. The evidence is suggesting that our thoughts, our focus, our stress, it can all create these small but significant changes in our cellular machinery. So if that's true, what else is possible?